30 million subscribers. That is the figure Xbox Game Pass reportedly reached, and on the surface, it looks like a milestone worth announcing. 30 million paying subscribers for a gaming subscription service is a number no one in this industry has come close to matching. The problem is that 30 million subscribers is not the number Microsoft built its entire studio acquisition strategy around reaching. It is the number that strategy produced after years of spending, and the gap between what it costs to get there and what 30 million subscribers actually generates in revenue is exactly where the summer 2026 studio decisions start to make sense. This is not a failure story in the traditional sense. It is a math story. To understand why 30 million is a complicated figure rather than a clean success, you have to look at what a subscription service actually needs from its subscriber base to make its content investment model work. Netflix crossed 30 million subscribers in 2012, lost hundreds of millions of dollars annually through that period, and kept spending aggressively because the model projected that a large enough subscriber base would eventually make the content costs manageable per user. The strategy worked because Netflix reached 100 million subscribers by 2017 and kept climbing from there. The content investment made sense in retrospect because the subscriber base scaled to a size where the per-user revenue spread across enough accounts to absorb the production costs. Game Pass at 30 million is not in the same position. Not because 30 million is an unimpressive number in isolation, but because the content investment Microsoft made to build toward that number was priced against a significantly larger subscriber base than 30 million accounts. The acquisition of Activision Blizzard alone closed at approximately $69 billion. The studio portfolio Microsoft assembled before and after that acquisition, all the development costs, the server infrastructure, the marketing spend to push subscription growth, was funded on the assumption that the subscriber count would scale to a level where the per-user cost of that content came down to something the monthly fee could support. Xbox leadership confirmed in the summer 2026 announcement that in a typical year the company lost 64 cents for every dollar it invested in its studios. At 30 million subscribers generating an average monthly fee somewhere between $10 and $15. The gross annual subscription revenue sits in the range of $3.6 to $5.4 billion before platform costs, licensing fees, hardware subsidies, and the ongoing operational cost of the studios themselves. That is a large number in isolation. Against a content investment that included a $69 billion acquisition, it is the beginning of why the math stopped working. This brings us to the question the original studio divestiture announcement left open, which most coverage has not answered directly. If the subscriber count is not growing fast enough to justify the current content investment, what are the two available responses? The first is to grow the subscriber count faster, which requires either more compelling exclusive content, lower pricing, or broader platform availability. Microsoft has pursued all three over the last several years. Game Pass expanded to PC, to browser-based cloud streaming, and to additional markets. The pricing has shifted across multiple tier restructurings. The studio acquisitions were intended to generate the exclusive content that would drive subscribers from 30 million toward whatever number the model required. The subscriber count reached 30 million and, based on the pace of announcements coming out of Xbox in 2026, appears to have slowed in its growth rate before reaching the threshold where the investment model becomes sustainable. The second response is to reduce the content investment cost rather than continuing to pursue subscriber growth. 5 studio divestitures, 3,200 staff reductions, and an explicit acknowledgement from Xbox leadership that the company is not the best home for every type of studio is the second response in practice. What makes the 30 million figure significant is what it reveals about the relationship between subscriber scale and studio economics in this specific model. The studios that generated critically acclaimed original games, Compulsion Games, Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Tango Gameworks before it was closed in 2024 were not failing as creative operations. They were producing exactly the kind of work that earned the platform critical credibility. What they were not doing was converting that critical credibility into subscriber growth at the scale the model required. A game that wins awards and earns strong reviews from players already subscribed to Game Pass is a retention tool. It is not necessarily an acquisition tool for the tens of millions of potential subscribers who have not yet converted. The studios with catalogs large enough to drive subscriber acquisition are the ones Microsoft is keeping. Call of Duty retains subscribers who would cancel without it. Minecraft does the same. Halo operates as an identity-level anchor for a core segment of the platform's base. A single-player narrative game from a studio of 40 people, regardless of how good it is, does not move a subscriber counter in the same direction or at the same scale. That is not an argument that good games do not matter. It is a description of what a 30 million subscriber service needs from its content pipeline to grow, and what the studios being divested were not positioned to provide even when they were performing at the highest level of their creative output. The open question the 30 million figure raises is whether the subscriber ceiling for a gaming subscription service is structurally lower than the model Microsoft built assumed. Streaming video had an addressable market of effectively every household with a screen. Gaming subscription services are competing for a subset of that audience. Active gamers willing to pay a monthly fee rather than purchasing games directly. If the ceiling for that market is closer to 50 or 60 million globally than to the 200 million Netflix operates at, the content investment model that justified the Activision Blizzard acquisition and the studio portfolio requires a different premise entirely. 30 million subscribers is where Xbox Game Pass reportedly is. Whether it is close to where the model needs it to be, or whether it reveals that the model was priced against a market that does not exist at the size required, is the question the next set of announcements will answer.